Hello, everyone. Welcome back.
Hello.
We're staying consistent. Huzzah! We haven't been struck by any more recent catastrophes so far.
Nope.
Fingers
We made it
crossed.
to week 2 of doing the new thing.
Yes. And 2020 is not over yet, so hopefully I didn't
Yes,
just jinx us to oblivion. But I'm
we'll
Paige.
see. I am Erin.
And today we are
Wait, you didn't say the name, Paige.
a
It's
pick.
your job to
I said welcome back to Pixel Perfect Podcast at the
No, you
beginning.
said welcome back. You didn't say Picture
I
Perfect
d-
Podcast.
I'm gonna listen
You,
back to this and I'm gonna
you
tell
will.
you.
You will. You
I
go ahead.
definitely.
You edit the episode and you tell me. I could be wrong. I could be the pregnancy brain. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of, if no one knows about that, I feel like you haven't mentioned that on the podcast at all. So surprise!
Pregnant.
We're all very
Yeah.
excited. Yes. So maybe we'll
So,
have a little guest star at some point next year. That
yes, potentially.
screaming.
You'll
um.
hear him in the background.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Um. So yeah, today we're doing a book episode. We're talking about Shiver. Maybe touching on the overall series a little bit, just because I might pull up some stuff. But this is one of my favorite books ever by my favorite author. So I'm very excited. I'm going to put a caveat out there though, that this is my favorite book, much like Ocarina of Time is my favorite video game, as in I know it's not the greatest thing out there and that she's made a lot better things since then. It's like my favorite book in
Yeah.
like a nostalgia way, but yeah, because I
Yeah.
I definitely reread it earlier this year and I was like, "Oh, you've grown a lot since you wrote this."
Yeah, the subtitle of this episode is Erin tries to be polite about Paige's favorite book.
It's fine.
So, uh, cause
That's why I put the caveat out there because I was like, I know what it is.
it not very good.
In terms of
It's
writing style or the plot.
writing, plot, characters. I think the whole shebang
Really?
needs a lot of work.
Well, I mean, it
That's
is
the whole reason why
yeah.
I was struggling to get through it is because I'm like, I'm bored. I don't really care about the people, and the writing isn't engaging enough for me.
Wow. Have you read any of
I
her newer stuff? Do you even like
Not her
her?
new I used to love Shiver. Back when I was in high school, I
Yep.
loved Shiver. It's been a long time since I read it, obviously,
Yeah.
but, like, back middle school, high school, twilighty age, Shiver was my jam.
Yeah. I would say to me, I love it. I love it. I like the characters and the romance in it, but that's just me. Like, I like it way better than Twilight. I feel like it's part of the reason I started stepping away from Twilight was because I liked Shiver so much more. But I think the reason, and not to harp on people who write this way, but after the Shiver trilogy, her new books after that, she moves to third person point of view. And she just like exponential growth in terms of her writing style. So like going
That's
back and
Yeah.
rereading it this year and I was like, "Oh, no, the first person is not good."
No, first person has inherent issues. You have to be a very, 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 very good writer to pull off first person, and the thing is that the problem is that most intro writers, people who are writing, like, their first books, they rely on first person
Mhm.
because they just don't have the skills yet, really, or because they're not willing to try. I'm not It's because first person is so much easier.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to write in first person.
There's a lot of
But it's
crutches to lean on with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. But it's first that's why and the thing is that those crutches as you read more, those crutches become more and more noticeable. It's easier and easier to pinpoint where people are relying on the first person.
Yeah.
And so first person is just like, don't write in first person, guys.
No, don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't
No.
do it.
And I love her dearly, but this is like very much not her best work. I also recently read her debut novels, which was even worse in terms of writing style. The plot was kind of fun and exciting, but yeah, she's grown a lot since Shiver came out. We did our thing again where we like just totally didn't tell anyone what this book is about.
Yeah. That's all you though. It's your book. Go for
Yeah,
it.
it was part of that 2008 YA craze that like everyone was really into like the supernatural romances. So it's similar to Twilight in that regard, but our main characters are Grace and Sam, and Sam is what I would call a shapeshifter because it does not adhere to typical werewolf lore whatsoever. Like there's not an ounce of it in the book. So he's a shapeshifter and it's about him grappling with that because the shape-shifting component of him has put like this sort of deadline on his life and his ability to stay human. So they're figuring out their romance and dealing with how to try to save him. We have side characters like Isabel, and then later in the series, which I don't know if you read more of them, but you get Cole. And Isabel and Cole are some of my favorite people in these books. They're a lot, I don't know, they're just like, they're a lot sassier. They have a lot, I think, more meat to their personalities. But I think the reason Grace kind of falls flat, even though I love the two of them dearly, I love their romance, but Grace falls flat because like her biggest trauma in life is that her parents ignored her. So she's kind of like, she's very plain.
She has no personality.
Yeah.
She doesn't.
Her
And
personality is
like,
math.
yeah, it's very weird. Like her personality, she's an introvert who really likes wolves, and you're kind of just like, okay. And
Yeah.
like I don't feel like she's very smart.
What makes you say that?
Like I just remember reading the part where she's like she tells all of her theory, and I was like, why would you do that? Why would you
Oh,
ever do that? And she just tells it like it's totally normal, and I'm like, what are you doing?
yeah.
Like Olive was just supposed to believe her about werewolves in the woods, and I'm like, what are you
You're
doing?
like, what are you on right
She
now?
just she doesn't strike me. For me, I think the biggest problem is I feel like it's the Bella problem,
Mhm.
where we are expected to believe that she is intelligent without being proof of the fact that she's intelligent.
Yep.
Like I like it, it's very Twilighty.
Oh, absolutely.
Um, but I like Twilight better.
Wow.
I find Twilight to be more readable than this.
That's fascinating to me.
Mhm.
Especially because I feel like I can't get past the nature of Bella and Edward's relationship. It bugs me a lot. So I think that's why I gravitate towards this series more. Um, there were two major criticisms I wanted to touch on that I saw through Goodreads that I didn't agree with, that I wanted to get your opinions on as someone who's
Okay.
like not as emotionally invested in this.
Sure. Go for it.
One of the criticisms was that they didn't find the romance believable because they felt Sam was like way too chaste for your average teenage boy.
I saw that.
Yeah, and I was
I
like,
saw that review.
why? What he just it's just I thought it fit with his personality and his upbringing and the sheltered, different life he led. Like I didn't find it out of character for him to be more respectful of
I
Grace.
didn't see it as him being chased. I saw him as being kind of awkward.
Yeah, he seemed like an awkward teenage boy.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I read him was as a more awkward person who just doesn't quite want like it's like when she's like come into bed with me and he's kind of just like I don't know how to react to that. And the fact that he's like very nervous about her
Yep.
parents and things like that. I think that's not my issue with their romance.
Yep.
My issue with their romance is that it I don't buy it. Like
Mhm.
I get that there's supposed to be like this weird supernatural connection
Mhm.
and they've been staring at each other in the woods for 80 million years. Like I get it, but it happens so goddamn fast. And I find the scenes and this is my biggest pet peeve with romance, right?
Mhm.
If your physical contact scenes are awkwardly written, I can't with you. Like I just her language choices and the way she writes the physicality takes me out of the story. And
Interesting.
that's my biggest thing with romance,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Is your romance has to be well written enough that I can it's not pulling me out.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense.
So that was my issue with the sorry. I just feel like I'm like just like ragging on your favorite book and I'm very sorry.
No, I put the caveat out there for a reason that like it's like a nostalgia favorite. Like it's not the best. There's been much
Yeah.
better stuff after it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
What was the other review?
Some people were saying it was like glorified furry fan fiction because she falls in love with a wolf. And I was like, I don't think the idea is that she straight up fell in love with a wolf. I think there's like a magical, mystical component to it. I think there was like this underlying understanding that there was more to him than like I think on a deep level she knew he was not just a wolf.
I interpret it as she is also part wolf.
Yes, that does happen later on. Like in the next book, I think she
So
becomes a wolf.
yeah,
So
so
they're
like
connected.
my interpretation wasn't so much as it's a human and a wolf as it was it's two wolves.
Yes. Yeah.
So like I didn't take it that way. It didn't bother me in that way just because it was like
I
so
saw
like
many reviews like that were disgusted with the premise of the book for her falling in love with a wolf, and I was like, I
I
think the
mean
whole concept went over their head.
it's a little furry in the sense
A
that I
little bit.
feel like
Yeah.
furries would appreciate it.
Right.
And obviously we're not criticizing furries, you know, you do you.
Yes.
We don't care what you do on your own time. Like um but it's definitely like I do think it's a little furry, but it doesn't bother me
Yeah. No, I
because
think it
it for me it felt like two supernatural beings just kind of being together.
yeah.
So
Some of the reviews I were reading were basically acting like Grace wanted to fuck a dog, and I was like, that's not at all what's happening here.
my understanding is that he's a very attractive boy when he's not a wolf. So
Yeah. So yeah, in the later on in the series, it turns out that she was supposed to have changed, but I don't know if you remember her describing the getting locked in the car by her parents and having like that
I
crazy fever.
yes, I did read that, and I also read the synopsis and everything.
Yeah,
And then I also I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But the premise that heat stroke and meningitis stop them from turning into wolves is the stupidest fucking plot point I've ever heard in my entire goddamn life.
really, that bothered you?
Yes, I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like it just like literally that plot point made me not want to finish the book. Like I
Wow,
read the synopsis and it was that and I was like, no. No.
that's never bothered me.
It bothered me a lot. Like like a lot.
Oh my
So,
gosh. I do think that is a tricky territory to wade into when you try to equate supernatural to like when people try to find a way to explain it. I'm like why can't we just let it be? Like just let it be a
yeah.
mystical thing that doesn't need
Yeah.
explaining.
And also like the weird mixing of mystical and science thing.
Mhm.
Like where they had that conversation where she's like, "Well, is it magic or it's science?" And he's like, "I don't fucking know."
Yeah,
And it felt like she was trying to mix the two and I
a little
don't
bit,
think it
yeah.
works. I don't think she did it in a way that worked for me.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah.
I feel like I want you to read Sinner. I want to see what you think about that because that's all about Cole and Isabel, and I feel like their romance has a lot of what Grace and Sam's romance is lacking. I think that's what part of what pulls me through the whole series is that I get to like watch both of these couples deal with their crap, and Isabel and Cole are all like passion and like angry with each other, and I feel like their romantic moments are better written because they're both more experienced individuals. They're not like each other's first everything, which can get like that's really hard to write and not have it be like clunky. But yeah, Sinner is like it's like outside the trilogy and is a follow up of what their relationship was like.
Potentially.
I also think it's
I
a
just
faster read than the others, so it wouldn't be inflicting as much pain on you.
I mean, this is a fast read. Like it doesn't take me like I can go through 100 pages in like a half hour. Like it's
Hmm.
not slow read by any means. I found it boring, and that made it really slow for me
Gotcha.
because I felt like there wasn't really anything happening. I mean, it's better than Twilight in the sense that like there's conflicts that are introduced before the last chapter.
Yeah, the theme stays consistent. Like, is that the part of my problem with Twilight is that I feel like in our episode about the series we talked about how it kind of feels like all over the place and like she's kind of like trying to force plot in where it doesn't need to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I feel like this series had a clear arc to me about like they figure out Sam's shit and then they're like, oh shit, now we got to figure out Grace, and then like the third book is the culmination of them trying to like save the whole pack and like find a way to live with what their life is like.
And I mean that makes like I said, her plot is definitely more spread out and
Hmm.
more seemingly. I think it has more thought to it
Yeah,
than Twilight. I think it has. I think it does have that on Twilight.
yeah,
It just happened to be a plot that I cared nothing for, and I didn't feel like there was enough conflict introduced to me early, or it was almost
Mhm.
like the conflict was just like there but didn't really seem to matter.
Yeah.
Like he gets shot and but oh, he's fine.
Yeah.
And then like they kind of just like do nothing and talk and then like nothing, I don't know. I didn't feel like anything was really
Yeah.
happening. I don't
Yeah.
like especially like the early book should be having enough conflict to engage you for the rest of the book. And I feel like the early book fails. I feel like the early book relies so heavily on the romance, which
Mm.
isn't developed enough and expects an immediate buy-in.
Yeah.
Like this romance starts so early and so hot and heavy and so embedded that you have to immediately buy them as a couple
It's almost like there's like
because
a
there's
missing novella at the beginning that like
yeah.
needs to describe the workup to this.
Yeah, like it just it happens so fast that you're just
Yeah.
like, "Oh, we are he's immediately boyfriend girlfriend." Okay.
Right.
We're 50 pages in and they're just together now. And he's been human for all of 2 seconds.
Yep. Like it probably could have
So,
benefited from more moments like when in the early on when they're in the bookstore in the summer and he sees her and like is having like romantic thoughts about her. We should have had more near misses between the two of them to see them kind of like interact with each other on the human side of things as well as the because otherwise like you said the romance is just like this psychic wolf bond which is the only thing that makes them fall in love.
yeah, which is like and the thing is too is that like there's not like it's I feel like Grace kind of changes personalities a little bit where she's kind of like introverted and then she gets around Sam and she's like aggressively sexual and then you're just like,
Mhm.
"Okay, what are you who are you?"
Yeah.
I don't understand and I feel like she's kind of blank slated for the purpose of the plot in the relationship.
Yeah. I can see that because Sam always definitely felt more well developed to me
I
personality
think
wise than Grace was.
I think she's more interested in Sam.
So you like you think the author's more interested in Sam? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, I
Yeah.
do think Grace is interested in Sam.
No,
It's very
I think no, I think that the writer is more interested in Sam and
hmm
his journey and his history and his everything
Yeah.
than she is in Grace.
Yeah.
And I think that comes across because you can always kind of tell when an author's like playing favorites within their own work.
Oh yeah.
Like Edward obviously gets more screen time and more interest and more everything
Yeah.
than Bella. Like it's
Aggressively so.
obvious. Yeah, like she's more interested in Edward than she is in Bella.
Yep.
And I think that she's that I don't know how to pronounce her last name. How do you pronounce her last name?
Stavater
Stivater is more interested in Sam than she is in Grace.
for sure.
So,
I think she got that stroke of inspiration, like that she had this idea of this boy and a girl who are like. There's this line in the very beginning of Linger, the second one, that says something like, "This was a story about a boy who used to be a wolf, and now it's about a story about a girl who's becoming one." Like I think something like that just occurred to her, and she was so dead set on like finding a way to tell that story, but like was not coming up with a lot of stuff for Grace, and just ran with it anyways.
yeah. I mean that sounds accurate
Yeah.
to me. So, I just
Well, I would definitely recommend it. Actually, I think if you're gonna start with Maggie Stiefvater this late in the game and you haven't read anything by her, I would definitely read the Raven Cycle because that is a really good series. She switches to a third person point of view. I the whole plot is really good in my opinion. I don't have you read that at all?
no. I've heard good things about it. I've heard a lot about it, especially
Mhm.
during my time as as a YA librarian,
Yeah.
but um I have not read it. No.
Oh, well, I
It didn't
personally
say,
like it.
was it just it cuz for me and you can absolutely deny this cuz obviously you know more about it than I do having read it. But it just seemed like a bunch of emo boys who were like having angst.
No, actually, I'd say like
Okay.
they're like half of them are, but in like unique, distinct ways. Like she really, I feel like got better at like character development in that series, and like
Okay.
each person has like they're like very distinct personality traits, and like the things that they do are very much well within character. Um, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I read a Goodreads review that was talking about how there's not a lot of difference between Sam and Grace, and I was like, that's accurate.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
Sam definitely gets more screen time and she's definitely more interested, but at the
Right.
same time, like there's voice wise, there's not a lot of
No.
difference. They're pretty much the same.
Yeah. They're just kind of like, "Eh."
So, which is something that Stephanie Meyer did better, I think, is distinguishing between Bella and Edward and their personalities and the way they think.
In terms of like just within Twilight, or in comparing the inner thoughts between Twilight and like Midnight Sun.
A little bit of both.
Okay.
But I feel like Edward's behavior and speech within Twilight is very Edward.
Hmm.
And they clearly think differently, which is kind of the whole point of why they're interested in each other, is that they
Right.
both think so differently.
I saw a really funny meme that was like, "What if Edward couldn't read Bella's mind just because there was no thoughts in there?" It's just wind whooshing through an empty cavern. I liked it. I thought it was funny.
I give Bella a little bit more credit than most people do.
But I mean, yeah, I feel like she got a bad rap. Um, I feel like this book is very 2008. Like Twilight, Shiver, 2008 was the year of making like blob lady narrators falling in love with like mediocre men. And we
Yes,
all
like
ate it up. We just ate that shit up.
yeah, I feel like looking back, reading it now, I'm like, yes, this is something I would have absolutely eaten the shit out of when
Hmm.
I was in high school. Like you
Yeah,
can like I read it now and I'm like, I understand why I liked it back then.
exactly. Yeah.
It's just that I've hit the point in my life where I don't have time for mediocre literature.
You're like, I have limited time in my day. I ain't got time for this shit. That I do the same thing. I took your advice and I download book samples all the time. And if I'm like within like 4 pages, I'm like, nope, I'm not reading it.
Books Amazon Kindle book samples will save your life and a lot of money.
Oh, for sure. Which I think you can definitely get for these books too. So yeah.
Yeah.
Um, did you have additional thoughts?
I was curious as I think I don't feel like we've gone into enough about why you like it so much. Like what about it
Um,
really appeals to you? Both like I mean like I think I understand why it appealed to you back then, but I am
mhm.
wondering why it has staying power with you.
Well, I do like I don't know why. I know it's bullshit and makes no sense, but the fact that they just like their love just happens immediately, and like I feel like it feels like it has that meant to be quality to it. I don't know. I just really enjoyed it. Like for some reason, it just
Is
spoke
it
to
cuz
me.
you can get right to the spicy parts?
Maybe even though it's not really a very spicy book.
It's spicy for 2008 high school.
I guess that's fair, but like she doesn't like actually write out sex or
Mm-mm.
anything.
No.
Um I liked the world that she built with the wolves. I do definitely like reading Sam's stuff more, especially his history with Beck and the pack. And I think the series has staying power because of the series as a whole, and not just Shiver.
Okay.
Because oh my god, my voice is dying. Cole and Isabel are definitely keep me interested. The pair of those two romantic stories paired together, I think, is what keeps my interest.
Okay, so you're kind of so Shiver is good, but as a whole you're able is like the sum of it is better than its parts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I would say so.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that the thing about the romance is if you're willing to immediately buy in, there is a level of satisfaction there.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's always like we're always interested in the passion and the build up, and you kind of get the build up without actually having to deal with any of the build up or stress.
Mhm.
So like if you're willing to immediately buy into their romance, I can see how an immediate payoff would be appealing.
Yeah.
So I get that.
Yeah.
I think it was just for me is not so much that I had to immediately buy into a romance, it was that I had to immediately buy into their romance.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense because I feel like if I were to read it nowadays, having never read it before, I don't know if I would. Like, I might keep buying into their romance immediately on rereads because I did enjoy it so much the first time around. So I'm like already rooting for them because I already am invested in it emotionally
Yeah.
versus like experiencing it a new time or like after a really long time had gone by, I might be like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. It's interesting to read Goodreads because I feel like it has like 5 stars or like 1.
Oh yeah, it's
Like
like all over the place.
nobody has a middling opinion
No,
on this book,
not
really.
at
It's like
all.
either they love it or they fucking hate it.
Yeah, it's definitely a trip to go through those reviews.
Oh my god.
Oh man.
I was actually surprised because I was expecting the score to be higher, and it
I think
was
it's people reading it later on. Like I bet if you looked at it in like 2010, 2011, I bet it'd be like nothing but 5 stars. But I think people are like rediscovering it or like rereading it and they're like,
yeah.
"What is this crap?"
I'm sure there's a lot of her fans who are going back trying to read her old stuff, who are fans of the Raven Cycle, who
Yeah,
are going back and reading her old stuff and being like,
absolutely.
I'm not so sure about this. Um, but it's it won a lot of awards when it came out,
Mhm.
like a lot. Like as the series went on, she got less recognition for it, but
Yeah.
like the Shiver got a lot of awards and recognitions and nominations for stuff. Like it was pretty, and it was like 8 on the bestseller list, I think, for a
Oh
while.
wow, yeah. It definitely is what
So
launched her into like being like a very
yeah,
well-known author was that book, but like it just came out at the perfect time. She like was riding on the Twilight high that was going on in
yeah,
the world, so people were
which
like,
was,
"Yeah, more of that."
and the thing is, it's very hard to be like it's a Twilight ripoff because if it's coming out, okay, so did they both come out in 2008?
I think Twilight came out in 2006, but it didn't really get popular. Oh no, cuz yeah, the first movie would have come out in 2008, so it definitely came out a couple years before that.
Let's see.
'Cause I
I'm checking
freaking remember going to the midnight release of the movie.
because I'm interested. So it was September 2006 for Twilight,
Mhm.
and then let's see. I'm curious because it's and then it was 2009 for Shiver. So
Okay.
yeah, you could call it at least heavily inspired in terms of publishing
Mhm.
by Twilight.
Yeah.
It might be why she was able to really
To, like,
do
sell it?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she did have a different book out already, but not nearly as well known.
Yeah.
That was called Lament, which is, about, fae stuff, which I think I kinda wish she would go back to that kinda thing because she's very good at,
Keep yawning.
fae.
Sorry.
It's fine. But her background is I think she has a degree, like, in history, and she, like, studies Irish folklore and all that stuff, so, like, she has strengths
Okay.
in that area, so I feel like but, I mean, I would not read Lament, it's her first book, therefore, it's very first book in quality, it's not very good.
Okay.
But, yeah, she definitely hit her
Yeah.
stride with the Raven Cycle.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about publishing too is that it takes years to get published. It takes
Mm,
time. So she would have had to have been working on it or started it like immediately after Twilight came out in order for us to really call it
I
a Twilight ripoff.
yeah,
So, because publishing is such a long, like, it takes like a year or two just to get after being chosen and going through to get to publication.
right.
So people are like, well, she just ripped off Twilight, and I'm because that's what the reviews say is she just ripped off Twilight,
Yeah, I
and I'm
saw
like,
that a lot.
well, the way publishing works,
Mhm.
she probably already was writing this, already had it in her mind, was probably already working, like
Yeah,
doing something before Twilight came out or as Twilight was coming out
yep,
for this book to have come out,
yeah.
3 years later.
And I feel like there's enough differences content-wise that, like, calling it a Twilight ripoff doesn't seem fair. Like, it definitely has the similarities, it's of a Twilight era for sure, but
Yeah.
I feel like
Well,
it can stand on its own.
it feels like in the same spirit of Twilight
Mhm.
for me.
Like the, like,
Like,
star-crossed lovers of supernatural sources, yeah.
yeah, and the writing kind of feels similar to me,
Mm,
and it feels very similar in many ways
yeah.
for me. But so it's interesting to think about how publishing wise when it would have. come out and
Mhm.
everything. But I'm not comfortable calling it a ripoff, but I do think that they're connected.
Yeah. I think there was a lot of stuff that came out. Like, I remember that frickin' book series me and Carrie were super into, the Vampire Academy.
Yes, I also read all those
Yeah.
books. Yeah.
Those were very steamy. I probably
Yes.
would reread those, honestly. Not gonna lie.
Then there was Blue Bloods. Do you remember Blue Bloods?
Yes, I do. There was another one.
And then there was Fallen, the angel one.
Oh my god, yes!
Yeah. And Hush Hush.
Hush Hush! I need to go back and reread these and re-experience the 8th grade, I think.
Oh my god.
There was another one too that was like, it was vampires, but also they had like elemental powers and like went to this school, and I don't remember what it was called.
I don't know that one.
Yeah. And then there was one that me and Carrie also read that was like about people, or this guy was like immortal, but it was not related to vampires whatsoever. It was fascinating.
Oh my god.
That was just
All of
like the
these
thing.
books.
Yeah. 2008 to
All of
like
these books.
2012 was the era of supernatural.
Angsty boys with
Yeah.
hardcore pasts coming in and being all mysterious to girls who had no personalities.
Yes. Yep.
That was it. And a lot of the times it had some sort of paranormal supernatural thing.
Absolutely. Hmm. And
So,
it was great. We loved it.
wild time, guys. We were definitely here for it.
Hmm.
And I go back and just like read the back cover of Hush Hush and I'm like, no. I'm good.
Yeah, I think
Thanks.
I thought of it like months ago, because now that we're talking about it, it's bringing back to mind that I was like scrolling through the Wikipedia for it, and I was like, I read this.
I don't know how we did it.
I don't either.
We were just starved, I guess, for
Yeah, that's probably
something.
it.
I don't know.
Well, I feel like, I feel bad that like we're like knocking on these like main characters, because I feel like part of the reason they're so popular is because, as like, when you're a young bookish teenager and your insecurities are telling you that you have no personality and that you're just whatever, you find solace in reading a book in which that kind of girl ends up with someone super awesome.
Yeah, I guess I felt like see my growing up is I always felt like I had too much personality. I was too much
Okay.
rather than not enough. So I'm wondering why I related harder to these girls where I always felt like I was excessive and obnoxious.
Hmm.
So I
I don't
don't
know.
know. I mean, I was definitely like shy and I had trouble like talking to people who I thought were like above me, but like
Didn't we all?
yeah. High school, middle school, wouldn't go back for literally
uh
anything.
no. No. I feel like if you meet someone and they were like, "Yeah, high school were the best days." Run.
Yes.
You run.
No. Yeah. It's a miracle that I have so many good friends from that period still. I think that's the weirdest thing about
That
us
is the
is like
weirdest thing about it.
everybody I know is like, yeah, I don't talk to people from high school, and then I'm
Yep.
like, all of my best friends are people from high
And
school
you always
still.
feel weird like bringing it up, because they're like, "Oh, they're gonna think I'm one of those freaks who like never left my hometown." No offense to
I
people who are still in
have
their
other
hometown.
friends. Yeah, I
Yeah.
have other friends. I just don't,
Yep.
happen to be close to people that I grew up with because they happen to actually turn into excellent people, which doesn't really happen
Yeah.
a lot of the time.
Oh man.
Ugh.
What a great note to end on, our opinions about people's personalities. Oh man. But if
Ugh.
you made it through this and you hear our mixed feelings on it, I would recommend it. Although if it's your first time reading Maggie Stiefvater, I would start with the Raven Cycle, not Shiver.
Yeah. I would not recommend it, but that's okay.
That's okay.
You know.
I wouldn't recommend Twilight, so
Yeah. Our friendship has survived
we
this, and
made
that's
it
the
through
important
this,
part.
you know?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, if I made it through you like hating on Zelda, I'm pretty sure we can make it through anything.
I mean, that's true. I don't think there's a comparable thing where you hating on something that was that kind of level of important to me.
I don't
I think it's just me
particularly
shitting
enjoy
on the
Kingdom
things we love.
Hearts.
Well, Kingdom Hearts is not great. It's hot garbage, but it's hot garbage that I love.
That makes sense.
but I know that it's hot garbage. The story plot line makes absolutely no sense.
Oh, no, no.
The most sensical game is the first game, and it's also the game with the worst kind of fighting system and graphics. And then they went fucking bonkers and made
Mhm.
the stupidest fighting system in the world. I'm done. I'm done. I
I
love Kingdom
so
Hearts. I
easily
love it.
just, like, pushed you onto that soapbox, it was great.
But I love Kingdom Hearts. I do. I
Yeah.
love it.
Um, I think, maybe a final positive note because it dawned on me, I don't know the answer to this question, but what is your favorite book that you would recommend to people to read?
Well, I don't know, cuz it's weird if you grew up with me, you'd assume that my answer was Harry Potter,
That's
but
why I
Harry
had to
Potter
ask.
is a complicated cesspool now.
Yeah.
Like, I had to ask all my family to not buy me Harry Potter things for Christmas, because that's, like, that's
You
what
don't
they
wanna fund
know.
her. Yeah.
Right. So, I had to, I'm like, "I just politely asking that you don't buy me Harry Potter things for Christmas because I don't wanna give that transpo money.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep.
Great. Thank you."
Exactly.
Um, Sister of the Traveling Pants.
I was wondering if it was that because I know you very highly recommended it,
I
before we
go
did our
back to it
episode.
Yeah, I go back to it over and over and over again, especially because they grew up,
Mhm.
and now that they have the book of them in their late 20s, I just there's always lessons I can glean from it. There's always things that I can do it. So I've read that series over and over and over again,
Yep.
and I'll read like different books based on what I feel like I need to go through.
Yeah. That's
So
nice. I like that.
so sister.
Alright. Awesome. Well, if you haven't checked out our episode on that, you should, so then you can get the
Hmm.
full gambit of our opinions on
Yes.
favorite books. But yeah,
Oh, and next episode we are doing World War Z.
thank you for telling me because I forgot.
Yes. So next episode we are doing World War Z, but the book, not the movie.
Yeah, because yeah. Also, we're jumping into a fun zombies-ish theme for January because we've been meaning to do it and we just want to because I don't know. We covered vampires, we're covering wolves right now. We might as well cover zombies.
We're gonna cover zombies.
Yeah. So
So
yeah,
we're gonna do World War Z.
that should be fun. So you guys can look out for that in the new year when it's not 2020
Yeah.
anymore.
Woo!
Thank God. All right, we'll catch you guys next time. Bye.
Bye. Bye.